Good morning, Chuan Present over here. On behalf of International Journal of Advanced Study and Research Work, I welcome you for the third day with presentation skills. Make every detail perfect and limit the number of details to perfect. As a words of Jack Dorsey, now we have been entering into the presentation skills. How we have to present and how we have to make yourself perfect day. Let's see. What is presentation? A presentation is a means of communication that can be adapted to various speaking situations such as talking to a group, addressing a meeting, or briefing a team. A presentation can also be used as a broad term that encompasses other speaking engagements such as making a speech at a wedding or getting a point across in a video conferences. To be effective, step-by-step preparation and method and means of presenting the information should be carefully considered. First, preparing for a presentation. Preparation is the single most important part of making a successful presentation. It is an absolutely crucial foundation and you should dedicate as much as time to it as possible, avoiding shortcuts. Good preparation will ensure that you have thought carefully about the messages that you want or to need to communicate in your presentation, and it will also help to boost your confidence. Preparing for a presentation. Following are the steps that include in preparing effective presentation. Plan, prepare, practice, present. Again, I would like to say that plan, prepare, practice. Preparing for a presentation. There are a number of aspects that you need to consider when preparing a presentation. They include aim, objective of the presentation, the subject matter, the content of it, the audience, whom you are going to present, what type of an audience, the venue or a place, where, then the time of the day, whether it is in morning or afternoon or the evening or the night, the length of the talk, how far you are going to speak. So you have to be well prepared. Okay, the objective, first one. Whenever you are asked to give a presentation or speak to a group of people, you need to start by asking the purpose of the presentation. In other words, what is the presentation expected to achieve and what outcome do the organizers and audience expect? These outcomes will shape your presentation because it must be designed to achieve the objective and deliver the desired. The subject. The subject of a presentation or talk about comes from the objective. They are linked, but they are not necessarily exactly the same thing. The audience. Before preparing material for a presentation, it is worth considering your prospective audience. Tailoring your talk to the audience is important, and the following points should be considered. First, the size of the group or audience expected. The age range. A talk aimed at retired people will be quite different from the one aimed at teenagers. Gender. Will the audience be predominantly male or female? Is it a captive audience or will they be there out of interest? Will you be speaking in their work or leisure time? Do they know something about your subject already or will be totally new to them? Is the subject part of their work? Are you there to inform, teach, stimulate, or provoke? Can you use humor? And if so, what would be considered appropriate? If you are in any doubt this, it is probably best to avoid anything even remotely risky. The place. It is important to have as much as advanced information as possible about the place where you are going to speak. It can be helpful to arrange to see the venue before the event. It doesn't much to quell fear if you can visualize the place while you are preparing your talk. However, even if you cannot visit, you will probably find it helpful to know the size of the room, the seating arrangements. Is it a theater style or row of seats or round table? The availability of equipment, example microphone, laptop, projector, flip chart is there. The availability of PowerPoints and if any extension lead is required for an equipment you intend to use on the time of presentation. If the room has curtains or blinds, this is relevant if you intend to use visual aids and so that you can ensure the correct ambience of your presentation. The position of the light switches. Check if you need someone to help if you are using audio visual equipment and need to turn off your lights. The likelihood of outside distractions, example, noise from the another room, and availability of parking facilities so you do not have a long walk carrying any equipment you might need to take. If this information is not available ahead of time, it will help to get there is bit early to give you time to set up for your presentation. The time. There will be often no flexibility in the time of day that a presentation is made. However, it does affect what you can do, and how you might organize your presentation because of the likely state of your audience. How time of day can affect your audience into three phases. The morning. The morning is the best time to speak because people are generally at their most alert. However, as it gets towards lunchtime, people begin to feel hungry or lose concentration. This is particularly true if the event has not included a coffee. Afternoon. After lunch, people often feel sleepy and lethargic. If you are given a slot immediately after lunch, it is a good idea to get your audience involved. A discussion or getting your audience moving about will work a lot better than simply presenting a lot of slides. A flip chart may also be more useful tool than a laptop and projector, especially if it means you can open blinds and use natural light. Towards the end of the afternoon, people again tend to lose concentration as they start to worry about getting home, the traffic, or collecting children from school in the evening or weekend. Outside regular office hours, people are most likely to be present because they want to be rather than because they have to be there. There is a better chance of audience attending in the evening, in the attention in the evening. However, if the presentation goes on for too long, people may have to leave before you have finished. People will also be less tolerant of a poor presentation because you are in their time, not their aim. Length of the talk. It matters a lot always. Always find out how long you have to talk and check if this includes or excludes time for questions. Find out if there are other speakers and if so, where you are placed in the running order. Never elect to go last. Beware of overrunning as this could be disastrous if there are other speakers following you. It is most important to remember that people find it difficult to maintain concentration for a long period of time. This is a good reason for making a presentation succinct, well structured, and interesting. Aim for 45 minutes as a maximum single session presentation and preferably leave at least 10 or 15 minutes for questions. Nobody minds finishing a session early. Providing information in advance. Always check what information you will need to provide in advance. Organizers of big events and conferences often like to have all the PowerPoint presentations several days ahead of the day. This gives them time to load all the presentations and make sure that they are properly branded for the event. Some events also need speakers' biographies ahead of time to put in conference literature. When you are asked to give the presentation, make sure you ask what is needed by when and then supply to it. You will not be popular if you turn up on the day and announce that you have completely rewritten your presentation on the train. It is entirely possible that the organizers may even not able to accommodate that. For example, if the audio visual is being supplied by a separate company or by the venue. And finally, being asked to give a presentation is a honor, not a chore. You are presenting your organization or yourself if you are self-employed. You are also not there by right but by invitation. It is therefore important that you put in the time and effort to ensure that you deliver what your audience wants. That's way you may just be invited back another time. Okay, organize the first we have seen that preparation. Now organize the presentation material. Regardless of whether your presentation is going to be delivered formally, such as at work or informally, for a club or perhaps a best man speech, you should always aim to give a clear, well structured delivery. That is, you should know exactly what you want to say and the order in which you want to say it. Having thought about and planned a good structure will also help to alleviate any nervousness you may be feeling in the build up to your talk. Clarity of ideas and good organization should help result in a lively, logical, compelling message delivered in a confident and professional. Select your main points. The document presentation should be divided into three sections: introduction, main content, conclusion. Is beginning, middle, and end. A useful structure would be the following things. Tell the audience in the introduction what your subject is and how you have organized the presentation. Then tell them the details of the key elements or messages. Then tell the audience what you have just told them by work on the main content first. From your notes, decide on the most important thing that needed to be said. If you have too much material, be selective. As a guide, three key points are sufficient for a 10 to 15-minute presentation. Six key points is be sufficient for 30 minutes. Eight key points is sufficient for 45-minute presentation. But arrange the key points in a logical order and expand them with supporting material as discussion, argument, analysis, and appeal. If you are hoping to persuade people, then it is advisable to address potential objections within the presentation so that you present a reasoned, well balanced view. Decide whether to illustrate. Most talks benefit from the personal anecdotes, introduction, and conclusion. The introduction should give a preview of what you are going to say and should gain the attention of the listeners with a statement of purpose. Make it clear whether you wish to accept questions as they arise during the presentation, thereby breaking off your flow and risk being sidetracked or will invite questions at the end. The conclusion should repeat the main points, but this time try to use different words and summarize the main point and argument. End decisively so that no one is in any doubt that your presentation is finished. This is also the time to ask the audience whether they have any questions. Writing your presentation. Few of us feel entirely comfortable writing a presentation. There is something very daunting for many people about the process of moving your thoughts from your head to paper. Yes, of course. There are two really important things that you remember when starting to write structuring your presentation. The structure
Give
and
your
content of your
presentation
presentation
an introduction, a main message,
will, of course, be unique.
think about using
Only
stories
you
to
can
get
decide
your
on the
message
best way to
across.
present your messages. However, you might like to consider some standard presentation structures for inspiration. For example, harnessing the power of three. In the public speaking and rhetoric debate, as well as in much communication, three is a magic number. The brain finds it relatively easy to grasp 3 points at a time. People find 3 points, three ideas, and three numbers
easier to understand and remember than four or more. You could therefore structure your presentation using the magic number of three: what, why, how. An alternative structure uses these questions: what, why, and how to communicate your message to the audience. In a way, this also harnesses the power of three, but is a special case for driving action. What? Identify the key message you wish to communicate. Think about the benefit of your message for your audience. What will be their gain? What can they do with the information? What will the benefit be? Why? The second one addresses the next obvious question that arises from the audience. Having been told what, the audience will naturally then start to think, why should I do that? Why should I think of that? Why should that be the case? Directly addressing the why question in the next stage of your presentation means that you are answering these questions and your talk is following a natural route through the material. This will ensure that you have the audience on your side immediately. How is the final question that naturally arises in the audience mind. They want to know how they are going to achieve what they have just suggested. Try not to be perspective or prescriptive here. Instead of telling people exactly how they should act on your message, offer suggestions as to how they can put or act, perhaps using an examples. You should try to back up what you say with evidence. You can use case studies, personal examples, or statistics here, but try to ensure that you use them in a form of a story. Editing your content. Once you have a first draft of your presentation, it is most important to review and edit this. This will help to ensure that really doesn't get your message across in the most effective way. When editing a presentation content, you should consider the first one, the language. Make sure that what you are saying will be clear to the audience. Remove any jargons and try to use plain English instead. If necessary, explain terms when you first use them. Second, the sentence structure. Use short sentences and keep the structure of the sentence simple in the form of delivery. Remember that you will be taking through your or talking through your ideas where the audience will be listening rather than reading off it. The flow, third one. Make sure that your presentation structure leads your audience through your ideas and helps them to draw your conclusion for themselves and use metaphors and stories to aid understanding and retention. Hooks to get and hold the audience attention. Ensure that you included several hooks at various points in the presentation. This will help you to get and then keep the audience attention. These might be stories or audience participation or some alternative visual aids such as short video of it. And double check for spelling and grammar. Make sure that any presentation slides or illustrations, the titles, captions, handouts, or similar or free from their spelling mistake. A final thought. The actual writing of your presentation is really the final stage of your presentation. If you have done your homework, you will be already be clear about the reason why you are presenting, the subject matter, and the main points you want to make. Actually, putting it down on paper should therefore be relatively straightforward. Managing a presentation event. The practicalities of how you manage your presentation event can make a significant difference to its success and to your nerves. Seating. If the chairs are freestanding, the seating can be arranged according to the size of the room and number of people expected. Final preparation. Arrive in plenty of time since being late will increase your stress level. If the room or hall is available before the audience arrives, check the seating is suitable, the supply and location of electric sockets and switches, Equipments like visual aids are working, microphone if one is being used, the lectern or a table is suitable for notes. If following a previous speaker, be prepared to set up any visuals before you begin your presentation. If possible, plan a spare 5 minutes before the presentation starts to quickly review your notes and come down to your next voice and language. Maintaining interest throughout depends not only on the content but how the talk is being delivered vocally. Remember that the following aspects of voice control are important: volume to be heard, clarity to be understood, variety to add interest, keen interest of the audience. Do not speak too fast and remember to pause occasionally to let the audience assimilate the function. Use easily comprehensible language and try to avoid cliches and jargon. If you are sincere, enthusiastic, you will quickly develop a rapport with the audience. How can you make a good presentation even more effective? Show your passion and connect with your audience. It's hard to be relaxed and be yourself when you're nervous, but time and again, the great presenter says the most important thing is to connect with your audience and rapport with them. The best way to do that is patient for the subject shine through. Be honest with the audience about what is important to you and why it matters. Be enthusiastic and honest, and the audience will respond to you. Focus on your audience needs. Yes, your presentation needs to be built around what your audience is going to get out of this presentation. Whether is it being beneficial to me? Whether is it beneficial? As you prepare the presentation, you always need to bear in mind what the audience needs and wants to know, not what you can tell them. While you are giving a presentation, you are also remain focused on your audience respond and react to that. You need to make it easy for your audience to understand and respond. Keep it simple, concentrate on your core message. When planning your presentation, you should always keep in mind the question: what is a key message for my audience to take away? Yes, you should be able to communicate the key message very briefly. Some experts recommend a 30-second elevator summary. Otherwise, you can say it right on the back of a business card or say it not more than 15 words. Whichever rule you choose, the important thing is to keep your core message focused and brief. And if what you are planning to say doesn't contribute to the core message, don't say it. Smile and make eye contact with your audience. This sounds very easy, but surprisingly a large number of presenters fail to do it. If you smile and make eye contact, you are building a rapport which helps the audience to connect with you and your subject. It also helps you to feel less nervous because you are talking to individuals, not to a great mass of unknown people. To help you with this, make sure that you do not turn down all the lights so that only the side screen is visible. Your audience needs to see you as well as your slides too. Stay strong and start strongly. The beginning of your presentation is crucial. You need to grab your audience attention and hold it. They will give you a few minutes grace in which to entertain them before they start to switch off if you are dull. So don't waste that on explaining who you are. Start by entertaining them always. Remember the 10-20-30 rule for slides. This is a tip from Ray Krasky of Apple. He suggests that slideshows should contain not more than 10 slides, last not more than 20 minutes, and use a font size of not less than 30 points. This I applies over there in many of the conferences and the seminars that I present. This lastly is particularly important as it stops you trying to put too much information on any one slide. This whole approach avoids breath death by PowerPoint. As a general rule, slides should be the slideshow to you, the presenter. A good set of slides should be no use without the presenter, and they should definitely contain less rather than more information expressed simply. If you need to provide more information, create a bespoke handout and give it out after the presentation. Tell stories. Human beings are programmed to respond to their stories. Stories helps us to pay attention and also to remember things. If you can use stories in a presentation, your audience is more likely to engage and to remember your point afterwards. It's a good idea to start with a story, but there is a wider point too. You need your presentation to act like a story. Think about what story you are trying to tell to your audience and create your presentation to tell it. Use your voice effectively. The spoken word is actually a pretty inefficient means of communication because it uses only one of your audience five senses. That's why presenters tend to use visual aids too. But you can help them to spoken word better by using your voice effectively. Varying the speed at which you talk and emphasizing changes in pitch and tone all help to make your voice more interesting and hold your audience attention. Use your body too. It has been estimated that more than three quarters of communication is nonverbal. That means that as well as your tone of voice, your body language is crucial to getting your messages across. Make sure that you are giving the right messages. Body languages to avoid includes crossed arms, hands held behind your back or in your pockets, and facing the stage. Make sure that your gestures open and confident and move naturally around the stage and among the audience too if possible. Relax, breathe and enjoy. If you find presenting difficult, it can be hard to be calm and relaxed about doing it. One option is to start by concentrating on your breathing. Slow it down and make sure that you are breathing fully. Make sure that you continue to pause for breath occasionally during your presentation too. And here were some questions that I just put forward to you for discussions. And I request you to go through with these questions and you can come up with your own comments and clarifications. For discussions, comments and clarifications, please feel free to mail me at vishnupriyantenglish@gmail.com, editor at IJASRW.com, and feel free to visit our SlideShare and YouTube for more. Thank you. Thank you all.